Hi everyone, we are back tonight to discuss another film, and this time it is the 1969, is it? Western Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is an audience recommendation, Robin. Did you know originally Steve McQueen was going to be in this? And because he tops the bill over Paul Newman, it was going to be called the Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy. And then Steve McQueen pulled out. They got Robert Redford in, and then Paul Newman was top of the bill, and it was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which just has a better ring to it, doesn't it? Anyway, so we got an email here from Rob. It's quite a lengthy email, and it goes through it in quite a lot of detail.
Okay.
So I thought I'm just going to read it sort of paragraph by paragraph, and we can reflect upon what is written and have our own discussion.
Yeah, okay, so effectively Rob's just done this podcast for us.
Exactly.
So we can just kind of kick back today and relax.
I first met our heroes Butch and Sundance on a wet summer's afternoon in the late 80s, and I was probably carried away with the action and the comedy and just the thrill of the ride. As I've grown up, I found more and more to love about the film, and if it's not the best film ever made, I can't think of many better. It's a really beautifully shot movie, even by today's standards. From the opening scenes with Paul Newman's sparkly eyes cutting through the sepia tones at the start, through countless panoramas of the Old West, to the final intimate moments of that shootout in Bolivia.
Don't give the end away. Oh, spoiler.
Oh, spoiler.
I was just going to say, he was saying there about the cinematography of it all.
Yeah.
I think whoever it was that was doing that element of the camera work,
Conrad Hall.
they like to have the sun coming up behind, so that the sunlight was coming in sort of behind, which impacted a little bit, but also then the dust and that kicked up, and it sort of created
lit
this
the
sort of
dust up, like.
Yeah, lit the picture up even more.
Yeah, Conrad Hall done the cinematography in this. He was around for a long time. I remember watching American Beauty and thinking, oh, that's beautiful. That's where I first became aware of his name. So he was still sort of around late in the day, but yeah, he's done quite a lot of the old westerns and that by the looks of it. Yeah, a lot of really dark shots in this.
Yes, there are, yeah.
But where they're like sliver of light lighting up their face, especially in the opening sequences, isn't there? Where Butch is looking around the bank and then Sundance is playing the cards. And
absolutely.
It really looks like. Rob goes on to say, there's a few things that really hit me when I watched it on Saturday. It's a really fun affair until the second train robbery.
Yeah.
Poor old Woodcock. But there are hints of what's to come when Sundance is accused of cheating and Butch's leadership is challenged. But once the chase is on, the tension builds and is released with a great line again and again, which leaves you feeling like you're on a roller coaster. So the train robberies are great, aren't they?
Yeah, and the first one, it runs very smoothly. They sort of show their operation in action, don't they?
Yeah.
This is how we do it, that we don't have any problems. We're really good at this.
And we don't hurt anyone.
Yeah, and it's always successful. We do what we want. We blow the doors if we have to. We take the money and we run.
Yeah.
And it's all good. Nobody gets hurt. And we even have a little bit of banter with a guy called Woodcock, which you would, wouldn't you? What do you think his first name was? Maybe, I don't know, Varnished?
Whittled.
Sorry, go on.
Rob mentions there about the challenge at the beginning for the leadership with the chap Harvey, isn't it? He's challenging Butch to sort of run the enterprise.
Yeah.
And he challenges him to a shootout or a knife fight.
Massive guy.
And he, actually, I Googled him because I thought, who is this guy? Have I seen him in other stuff? He actually plays Lurch in the old Addams Family TV series.
Ah, okay, right, yeah. I like the way he says, does he say something like, I'm not a bad loser or something, but if I lose, shoot him or something? Does he? Yeah. Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And yeah, so their gang is the Hole in the Wall gang, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there was also known as another group, wasn't they? The actual gang. Butch Cassidy's real gang. Do you know what they were really called?
No.
And they had to change the name in this film because another film had come out a couple of years previous with the same title.
Okay.
The Wild Bunch.
Oh, really? Ah.
Yeah, that's what the gang was really known as. That was a Sam Peckinpah film just from a few years previous. But going back to the train robberies, though, I love that explosion on the second train robbery where he's like, oh, we need more dynamite because Woodcock, he's a little job's worth, isn't he, Woodcock? He won't open the doors. Yeah. I'm employed by the,
I'm going to do my job.
Even though he's in a bandage from the last time he'd done his job.
Yeah.
And then when they get there, all like the safe has all been like welded shut and it's got metal panels and strips holding it all shut. So they get more dynamite. But that explosion It's a brilliant comedy moment, but that seemed to engulf them.
But I think it genuinely did. It wasn't them too. It was their stunt doubles. But I think it was quite a sort of like balsa wood or something on the train doors that they blew up. And they knew they were going to get hit by it. And during the documentary, the director was talking about how he needed to pull them away from it a little bit further to make sure that they didn't get too injured from it.
Yeah.
And actually, talking about the stunts in this film, there was a few stories of stuntmen getting quite badly injured.
Was there during the making of this?
Yes, there was. So apparently there's one on the train when they had the logs and the chain breaks.
Right, yeah.
And the logs roll off. Well, apparently one of them came off the train and the logs came off with him and landed on top of him.
Oh, Christ.
He lived, but I don't know if he ever did any more stunt work after that. And then there was another one later on at the shootout at the end, spoiler, and they shoot some guy up on the top of an archway.
Yeah.
And the stunt guy jumped off. But he jumped off onto a load of cardboard boxes, but it wasn't enough to do that. So he broke his pelvis when he landed. Proper stuntmen. And that's something that, watching Western films, I know often they speed up the horse stunts and things, but there was some seriously good stuntmen going on back then, wasn't they? They did have stunt doubles in this one, but I know Figure Bob Newman, what's he called?
Robert Redford wanted to do his own stunts, didn't he?
Yeah, but it wasn't him, it was the other one, Paul Newman.
Oh, right.
He did, towards the end when they were doing the horse riding stuff, he did his own bit on that, apparently. So they did do their own stuff.
And he put his feet up on the bicycle crossbar. He done that himself.
Oh, do you know what I was thinking? He got himself a bike within a day. He was a pro, wasn't he?
Oh, wasn't he?
Blimey, he was good. It took me at least a week before I could pedal without stabilisers.
No, that's right, yeah, to actually get the balance to ride a bike. He was doing all sorts of stuff on it.
Oh, wasn't he just?
But he did crash it.
He did. Oh, I got a good story about that too, but we'll probably get to that in a minute.
Oh, go on. No, let's talk about the bike scene.
So a couple of interesting facts that I heard. 12 minutes of music in the entire film.
Yeah, I thought it was very silent.
Yes.
And it works, though, doesn't it?
It does. And
there's something about the sound of the horses during that whole chase scene.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Like that.
And then weirdly, interspersed amongst it, are three Burt Bacharach songs.
Yeah,
which,
ill-fitting Bacharach songs.
They're contemporary songs of that time. I mean, now, my God, we're saying like they're ancient, but back then they were obviously contemporary. That was contemporary music, and they just dropped in at these three random points. I don't know if it works or not. It just kind of
it felt weird to me when it burst into raindrops keep falling on my head, and it's like it's not even fucking raining.
It's in a freaking desert.
It did seem a bit weird.
And he's on a bike. you know, it's like...
Yeah, it was a bit strange.
It's an interesting choice. I think a lot of the time in this film, you get this feeling that it's crossing between what the films that have come before it and where cinema was moving to.
Yeah.
And also you get that in terms of the story as well, don't you, with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, because they're obviously coming from an era that's running out of time, as it was, and moving into a more modern era where you just couldn't get away with the same stuff anymore. And so there is that sort of crossover going on in there. Yeah,
because you think as well, this is the same year as Bonnie and Clyde as well, which is a very similar sort of film, isn't it? About romanticises the criminals. Yeah. Whereas Bonnie and Clyde were a bit more ruthless, weren't they?
Another part I saw in this documentary was going back to the train bit, and Paul Newman, when he was doing that sketch with Woodcock, they had a conversation about how he played it, because they'd been rehearsing it before they got there. And then when they did it actually on the set, Paul Newman changed his character to be more comical. And the director, George Roy Hill, basically, he then stopped it. He sort of challenged him and said, "What are you doing?" And he sort of said, "Well, I'm playing it as I think, it, it just feels it's coming out like this." And he was saying, "No," he said, "I don't want you to be funny or sad in these bits. I want you to be real."
Yeah.
And then that the funny and sad bit will come across in the part of the film rather than in your character's persona.
If you try too hard to be funny, it's not going to be funny.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to bring the comedy out of the realism of
absolutely. So he had to play it that way, and then just allow the film and the story and the lines and the moment and the scenes to bring out the elements that they wanted.
Yeah. But then I read something somewhere else about Paul Newman not originally wanting to do the script because he thought there was too much comedy, and if he'd done it, he wanted to play it straight.
Awkward
just
bastard.
Fucking awkward. But the writer, William Goldman, he's done some great films, actually.
Right, yeah.
He wrote All the President's Men and Marathon Man,
Yeah.
But what I thought, oh wow, I couldn't believe was The Princess Bride.
Oh.
Do you remember that? Princess Bride? Have you seen that film?
No, I don't know. Don't know that I have.
Oh, that's a great film. Comedy, fantasy sort of comedy film with Andre the Giant in it.
No, can't say I know much about it.
That's one you need to watch. So,
So,
there is more of this email. Do you want to hear more?
yeah, we need to keep going.
He says, I used to find the photo montage in the middle a little bit long, but watching it now you can see every emotion in the faces of our heroes. There's one particular shot of Sundance and Etta dancing while Butch watches on that seems melancholic, a recognition of the life they could have had but really had no place in. And this comes up again when they're going straight and have the shootout with the bandidos. And you realise that this is the first time in the movie that our heroes have killed anyone. And they did it for a straight job.
They did.
They did, yeah. I don't know how much truth is in that bit with the bandidos.
No, I don't know. I don't either. But it's a nice way of putting it, isn't it, in terms of the film? Because obviously they've gone straight. And actually the irony is that it's going straight that ends up putting them in the shite, so to speak.
It does. He has a line like that, doesn't he? To say like, all right, so we've gone straight. What do we do next? Something like that, isn't it? Yeah. And it's sort of a comical line, but it was such a like, shit, this has just gone tits up. But I think we jumped ahead here, really, because we have talked about the scene where they're being pursued.
Yes.
I just think that it's so good that it's not, they're always at a distance.
Yep. Absolutely. You never see their faces.
No.
You never see who they are. They speculate, don't they?
Yeah.
Who is it? Who is it? Do you think it's so-and-so? Do you think it's so-and-so?
And you always see them from Butch and Sundance's point of view, don't you? And they're so far in the distance.
But yeah,
they're trying all these things to throw them off and they're like, oh shit, they're still coming.
Yeah.
It's a real relentless chase, isn't it? There's no music.
Yeah.
There's no escaping it, is there?
I think it sets them up for that inevitability, doesn't it? That you know where they're heading.
Yeah.
You know, they're not getting away.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what they do, they're always being tracked, aren't they? And it's kind of, that's the theme of the film, isn't it? Ironically, it isn't them that catch them in the end.
No,
but you know, it is really well done.
Rob was saying about the photo montage, and when I was watching it, I was thinking, God, if they're trying to keep a low profile, they're having a lot of photos taken. But apparently, that is also what was their downfall in the real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that they had to keep going into places having their photos taken.
Yeah,
because I suppose that was a new thing at the time as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And they just loved it. And they was both sort of well-to-do people. The real Butch Cassidy, you know, because he had his principles about not killing anyone, he had a lot of respect in a lot of areas, and he gave his money to a lot of people who really needed it.
Yeah.
You know, so he's a bit of a Robin Hood, and he had friends in high places. And the gang was all sort of sworn that they'd never rat each other out, and they'd never kill anyone. Yeah, actually their downfall was a photo. It's a real famous photo, like a Wild Bunch. And then the shop where the photo was taken, they put the photo in the window because they were proud of this portrait.
And that went for the wanted posters.
Well, someone recognised one of the gang and then called Pinkertons.
Yeah.
But yeah, they was then put onto their trail. And that's what led them all to have to split up. So, yeah, so they escaped, didn't they, to Bolivia with the woman, Katherine Ross, at a place.
Yeah, well, Katherine Ross, I think the writer envisaged as someone slightly older and a bit more seasoned.
But then I suppose if you're making a film, it's eye candy, isn't it? What they essentially go for.
It's weirdly, that's how they described her, yes.
Is that what they said?
Pretty much, yeah. I can't remember the exact words, but it was pretty much along the lines of, she was a very sexy woman. And
that's why.
Yeah. And apparently she was actually quite argumentative as well. She was the hardest one to work with on the set.
No, she wasn't.
Well, I was going to say, well, I think she was.
It sounds like they had a great time together. Robert Redford, Paul Newman and Katherine Ross, when they went over to... It was filmed in Mexico, all the Bolivia scenes. And they just said, right, we're not drinking the water, we just drink beer. And they basically just drank the beer. And everyone else got really bad diarrhea and illnesses from the water. Except for those three were the only three who didn't, because they had drunk all the time. But yeah, anyway, go back to the story. I love the scenes where she's teaching them how to like rob the banks in Spanish, and telling them what to say. The first robbery, they go in and he's reading it off a bit of paper. I can't read this. And he's Robert Redford, who's like doesn't have any interest in learning it, has learnt more than Paul Newman. He's going, they've got their backs to the wall. They do the robberies and that, and then they decide to go straight. What makes them decide to go straight? I can't remember. They think that it's the posse again, don't they? They see a gang and they think it's the posse after them again. So they go straight. And the first job they get is to protect the money that they're usually robbing. When they go to the bank and they're like stood outside hiding, they're like, didn't we rob this place in June?
It is a fun film. It does work on a level as a comedy.
Yeah.
But it isn't just out and out comedy, is it? It's just nicely...
I think any film like this, it's an epic film. It looks good.
Yeah.
It's got good performances, but I think there's people relate to laughter, don't they? There's got to be banter between characters, and it makes a film a lot more inviting and enticing. And a lot of films now, I find, they'll have a good story, but sometimes everything's a bit too bleak, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of films I think that was interesting, but I don't want to watch it again in a hurry because there's nothing warming.
Yeah, you've got, exactly. And that plays into why these characters are likable and why you buy into them and their story, isn't it? And you sort of see their, particularly with Butch Cassidy, you sort of see his frailties and his weaknesses in a way, don't you? You know, those sorts of human elements to him. You know, he wasn't just a die-hard cowboy that, you know, you could see he was fearful of being chased by the posse. You know, he didn't want to kill anyone. He had sort of moral values. He was always the next one, you know, next place we go will be the place. And
when they're being pursued, especially, isn't it? He's like, he can't believe that they're in that mess, can he?
Yeah.
He keeps going, they can't keep following us. And Robert Redford's like, yep, they're still there. He's thinking, well, why are they so keen? You know, we haven't killed anyone. They're not.
Yeah, and that basically comes down to the money, doesn't it? You know,
exactly.
Obviously, the amount of money that they've taken. They've suddenly become very, very expensive for the train companies, haven't they? And that's why they're being chased. And then there's that bit where they get they tie up the lawman, don't they?
Yeah, he's a friend of theirs, basically, isn't he? But when he walks in there, he's like, God's sake, what are you doing here? You know, I don't want to get involved in this. And he's like, get your guns out, point your guns at me.
Yeah, tie me up to the bed, tie me up to the bed. And but again, you know, because he says to them, doesn't it? You know, you're going to die. It's just a case of choosing where you're going to end up or something, where you're going to get killed, isn't it?
Yeah. Another really interesting point. Butch Cassidy's sister was on set during making of the film. His sister.
Yes.
And you're like, what? Is that really the same timeline? But she amazing. She passed away in 1980.
And that's the crazy thing about it, isn't it? I mean, you know,
it's not that far.
That really was still within the era where there would have been people that could actually go back and remember that time. Incredible. But that's the thing about American history, I guess, in a sense, is that it's not that old, is it? In the grand scheme of things.
Going back to Rob's email, after all that build-up and release, we're brought to the final scenes. The shootout in the village begins like all of the other scrapes we've witnessed, but starts to play out a bit different. The banter between them is harder to laugh at, as you realise this is the last time we get to enjoy our heroes back and forth. And as they run out of the building into a hail of gunfire, we are relieved as the frame freezes and turns back to the sepia, because the director has brought us to a place where, exactly like Etta, we love them too much to want to watch them die.
Yeah, because that's what she says, and she says, I'll skip that scene.
And so did the director. Yeah, I thought that was a clever shot, because they run out.
Very well done.
And it's the film, and then they freeze frame.
Yeah. The way that they did that scene at the end was they took a photo, drew the colour out of it, turned it to sepia, replaced the film with the photo, and then zoomed out of the photo. There you go. Really nicely done. Really
you don't notice the splice, or I didn't.
No.
Maybe if you look closer, you could. But
yeah. And that's the sort of thing, again, isn't it? Where nowadays that sort of technology is very easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
And reducing colours and withdrawing it and stuff. You know, we could do that. They were doing original things. Yeah. And so, you know, this is a brave film because it's a comedy, but it's still got that gritty Western element to it. It's telling a true story, you know, but at the same time, they've tried to make it quite upbeat, contemporary, likeable characters.
It's to go in for a wider audience, isn't it?
Yeah, and it works.